Anyway, let me get my throat clear. I had been diagnosed in December of last year. I think it was December, wasn't it? That I had throat cancer at the bottom of my tongue. So the radiation doctor, I talked to him. He said, "You need to go to see a surgeon." So I went to see the surgeon at Augusta State University. He said, "Well, the best thing we can do is take your tongue out, put a piece of meat in there to replace it, and take your voice box out, and you'd have to be fed through a tube and talked through one of these mechanical things the rest of your life." And I'm just sitting there like, "What?" And he said, "Well, I have a professor at Georgia Southern. He had it done, and him and his wife, they just have a quality life." I said, "Well, that ain't quality to me." I said, "I'm not doing that." And I told Dennis, "I ain't doing that." I said, "I'd die and go to heaven before I do that." But I wasn't going there either. It ain't time. So I went back to the radio. Well, I can't tell the whole story because we went to Florida, went to a minister called Billy Burke, and that's a story in itself. But it's on video. We can show that one day. But anyway, I went to the radiation doctor. I said, "Is this the only option I got?" He said, "No, we can do radiation treatment," which was a blessing in itself because up until 3 years ago, they couldn't do radiation on a person again. And I'd already had radiation in 2001. So they were going to do radiation. I went to the oncologist, and they said, "Well, we're going to do 3 rounds of chemo, and it's cystatin, which is a real old, but it's a real strong chemo." And he said, "Now, we're going to give you some nausea medicine because you're going to get nauseated. We're going to give you," so they filled 2 prescriptions for nausea before we left his office. He said, "Now, you need to take this. You're going to feel sick for a couple of days or 3 days after you do this, and you're also going to lose your hair." I said, "Well, I'm used to that, so I've done that before, so I can handle that part." So anyway, I wasn't worried about the hair part, but I like to hold on to what I got as long as I can anyway. So, and you always wonder why did one turn loose today that wasn't turning loose yesterday. So anyway, to tell you the truth, the first day this was funny. She brought home the nausea medicine. I never touched it. Yet to touch it. I never drank any, never took any, nothing. I had 3 rounds of chemo, never got sick, never threw up. One day we got up from chemo and they said, "You doing all right?" I said, "Yeah, me and my wife's going to Red Robin to get something to eat." And so I had a struggle trying to keep my weight up, and I'm tube fed. Well, I was up until about a week ago. I started drinking the stuff now. But it got my weight up. I went as low as 144 pounds. And I'd get up to go to the bathroom at night, and I'd fall on the floor. I'd wake her up, wake my son up. And they'd, "You all right, you all right?" And, well, it's funny because I never hit anything. I'd always fall in the middle of the floor. I missed the bed. I missed the door frame. I missed a lot of things. I missed the chair, but I always found the floor. I could find that with no problem. So as I took this nourishment, my weight got up, and up to 178 pounds now. And what's that? Yeah, I was getting to that. But anyway, so I went through the radiation with no problem. I worked the whole time I was going through treatment. They were amazed that I was going back to work. And I'd come in at 2 o'clock, get my treatment, take about 15 minutes to go back to work. Then chemo would take all day pretty much, so it takes a while to put that in. But never got sick, never lost any hair, never got nausea. And in the 3 rounds, the doctor like, "I can't believe that. I can't believe it." And so as I put the weight back on, we went over to the oncologist one day, and I told Pastor Susan and Pastor Matt, walked in the reception and said, "You look so good. Give me a hug." So she was surprised. And then the doctor walked in, and his eyes went, "Wow, you look good. You put on about 20 pounds, 30 pounds since last time I saw you." I said, "Yeah, I've been taking that 2-cal down." But I'm drinking a lot more water than I used to, and I found out that sweet tea is a cause of my problem. I have a reason I'm taking, because sugar is a cause of cancer, because when they give you this PET scan to tell you whether they have cancer or not, the stuff they use is sugar-based, because cancer is attracted to the sugar, and that's how they can find it on the PET scan. Well, I calculated up. I'd been drinking sweet tea since my mama breastfed me. And so I've been drinking a lot of sweet tea, and I figured out one day at work how much sweet tea I drank in a year. And I was calculating up, and I was consuming 96 pounds of sugar just on sweet tea. So I'm off sweet tea, and no sugar, so I'm not doing that. So I said, well, anyway, but we had the PET scan about, 2 weeks ago? Had the PET scan. Had the biopsies done in the throat, and the doctor said, well, we didn't find any cancer. The biopsy came back clear, and I shared that one day. But the PET scan came back, and they said there's no more cancer. You're clean. You're free. 100% no cancer. So that's a testimony. And
Tell about wrestling the game.
oh, yeah, and I'm back umpiring softball. I went to Atlanta about 2 weeks ago and did a weekend tournament up there. First time I'd umpired since last year. I did 15 games in 3 days, did more than anybody else, and they were about 10, 20 years younger than I was. And it was so hot on this one field that it melted the sole off the bottom of my shoes. I was on an artificial turf, and it got about 110 degrees on that turf, and the sole came off the bottom of my shoes, and I was soleless on the last game. I looked down, and there was something on the plate. I said, where'd that come from? She said, off your shoe. I said, really? And I looked up, and there was the other one flapping. So I threw it back there and finished the game. But I didn't get tired. I mean, it was hot. It was hot. And the last day we were there from 7 a.m. to 9:20 at night. Stayed there, stayed on my feet all day, never got tired. And I just feel great. Yeah. Well, this is some scriptures just about worn out, but this is the second batch I've had. I printed them off, and I got to do another one because this is worn out. But Tanya wrote this out. It says, according to Deuteronomy 28:61, my sickness, cancer, and tumor is a curse of the law. But according to Galatians 3:13, Christ has redeemed me from the curse of the law. Therefore, he redeemed me from the curse of sickness. Therefore, I no longer have a cancer or a tumor. But Janice told me about these verses, and she sent them to me, and she said, just pick out 15. And I said, well, there's 101, so I can pick out 15. But your days shall be 120 years. I will take sickness away from the midst of you, and the number of your days I will fulfill. I've redeemed you from every sickness and every plague. No plague shall come near your dwelling. You shall not die, but live and declare my works. My joy is your strength, and a merry heart does good like a medicine, which I like to laugh anyway. Your light shall break forth as the morning, your health shall spring forth speedily. I will restore health unto you, and will heal your wounds, saith the Lord. I will bind up that which is broken, will strengthen that which is sick. Seek me, and you shall live. I heal them all. If you can believe, all things are possible to him that believeth. I heal all those who have a need of healing. I've come to give you life, and life more abundantly. If you ask anything in my name, I will do it. I want it to be well with you, and want you to live long in the earth. I have delivered you from the authority of darkness, and by my stripes you are healed. So I quote these a minimum of once, but usually 3 times a day. Whenever I get a chance, I quote these verses. Even now, I still do that. So these have been a real source of strength for me over the months that I've been dealing with this. This started back in, I actually started in October when I found out I couldn't eat a corn dog anymore. So it's been a long process, but there's other miracles that went on, and along with this, that I can't share them all tonight because it would take another hour probably to tell it all. But God is good, and He healed me.